Good morning and welcome back to Spurs Latest. I am your host, Trip Graham. So happy to have you here today. Got so much to talk about in the NBA, so much to talk about our Spurs. Let's get into it. First, big game tonight. The Spurs take on the Pistons in a rematch after a hard-fought, brutal matchup last month. They went at each other last month. Very, very competitive game where, Cade Cunningham sees himself as an MVP candidate. Victor Wembanyama sees himself as an NBA candidate, and it was real. They took each other on strong. They went on each other in the paint. They got chippy at points in the game, and I expect a lot more of that chippiness to come in through the game tonight. So who do I see as the difference makers? Definitely for the Pistons, I see Jalen Durant, not Ivy. Jalen Durant as the X factor for the Pistons, and the X factor for our Spurs tonight is definitely Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell is keeping up the momentum that he scored 22 points just the other night and really look to keep that momentum going. Really excited for him in this game. Other players that I look forward to, Keldon Johnson in this game. He's just been a beast, Sixth Man of the Year candidate, and I definitely see him as the victor of that Sixth Man of the Year candidate after all said is done this year. So really looking forward to that. We got a lot of MVP, Sixth Man of the Year, Defensive Player, Coach of the Year. We could win a lot of awards this year just based on this roster makeup. Mitch Johnson, I believe, is one of the finalists for the Coach of the Year. Him, JB Bickerstaff, Joe Mazzulla, just some great coaches out there. But I think Mitch, he's one of the top coaches. If not Joe Mazzulla, let's see how that happens. So other things out of this game. So the Spurs are 21-6 at home court this season, and they're ranking in third in the Western Conference in team defense. That's my biggest key to the game right now for this, is that we really got to limit their points. The 118 points per game the Spurs average are 8.7 more points than the Pistons allow. Just a very much a team basketball. The Spurs did win their last meeting 114-103 on February 24th, with Devin Vassell scoring 28 points. So let's see him come back in full force and try to get that 28 to up to 30 for this game. Some of the top players of our team right now is obviously De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. Fox is averaging 48% shooting with almost about 19 points from the field. Wemby is 20 points over the last 10 games, a really good scoring combination right now. Durant is just going off this season. Absolutely one of the top big men in the league at this point, and I see him being a perennial all-star going forward. Durant is averaging about 19 points per game and averaging about 11 assists per game for the Pistons. Well, other big things in this game is absolutely limiting Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham had a really bad night the other night, but over the last 10 games, he's averaging 2.43 threes made per game. He's really killing it there. So last 10 games, obviously our Spurs were on that big winning streak. They're 9-1 in the last 10 games, averaging 123 points on this stretch. Unbelievable. And they're just holding their average opponents to 108 points. Unbelievable turnout from them. And we're really keeping this momentum going. After a tough loss, it's always going to happen after a big streak, 11-game streak against those Knicks this last weekend. Let's go against another MVP candidate in Cade Cunningham and go against another Eastern Conference foe in the Pistons. We got to take them down in this game. One of the biggest things this year is the East better or the West better. Let's remind the East who's the better team. You can't go lose two big East games in a row. So let's try to beat these Pistons. Really looking forward to this game. So a lot to talk about with that, and we will be here to recap tomorrow for this game. All right, other things going on. Who do you guys have winning your MVP? Because I got a few thoughts. Well, first I want to say is that with the 65-game rule to be considered, it is absolutely crucial that this dictates the 25-26 MVP. Because, Shea has a few more games. He was the last year winner of the MVP. Missed most of his games in February due to an abdominal strain, but he returned last Friday. he's played 51 of the Oklahoma City 62 game. He has to play 14 of the last Thunder's 20 games. Obviously, that's not a crazy rate to be playing, so I do see him getting it. But if he doesn't, I definitely do see him being the favorite to win MVP. According to DraftKings, he definitely is the favorite at this point. Other things, Jokic. He only's got one more game he can miss to be MVP, and that's really, he does not have that breathing room that Shea has. So the Denver Stars won 3 of the last 5 MVPs and awards after a close game matchup with SGA this last season. He really should have won it over Joel Embiid, but he's missed 16 games this season and only can miss one more game before he's cut from the MVP conversation. Very tough for him, so I don't see it happening. The next 2. So I'm going to go off on a limb and say that Shea is going to win MVP this year. He's just got every single stat that you could ask for from an MVP candidate while being the first in the West. The next 2. So let's just say in a world where Shea doesn't hit the threshold of hitting 14 of 20. Then it falls to the 3 of Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, Victor Wembanyama. The biggest thing with this is, Cade Cunningham will have the edge over the other 2 guys as he is the first seed in the East. Do I think these 3 guys will win it? No, but I am saying this in scenario that, SGA and Jokic don't hit the threshold of hitting the minimum amount of games. So according to DraftKings, Cade Cunningham is a plus 1,200, Wemby is a plus 1,700, and then Jaylen Brown really trails the rest of them with a plus 6,000 to win MVP. So, Vegas is saying that we believe that Shea is going to win it at a minus 300. Obviously, he won't be eligible if he doesn't hit the 65 game minimum, but it's looking like at this point he will be. Jokic is, it's going to be tough. Obviously, he's plus 650 to win the award. Only's got 1 game left to lose if he wants to get in. All right, so let's do a standings check-in. I have a lot of thoughts about the standings at this point in the season. 3/4 into the season, let's talk about it. So we'll start off in the West. So the Thunder, we have been in deadlock for the Thunder for the last 3 weeks now, just trying to catch up to them. Always moving between 2, 2.5, 3 games behind them. And now we are a full 3 games behind them, pretty much distancing ourselves from the pack. Us and the Thunder are really distancing ourselves from the pack with the Rockets in that 3rd seed at 8.5 games out from the Thunder. And we are just dominating, and it's a pretty clear race of who is going to win the West. It's going to be the Thunder and us coming in second. The most interesting things that I see out of the West right now are that 6th and 7th and 8th seed. So the biggest thing, it's really 6th and 7th. The Lakers are 37 and 24, while the Suns are 35 and 26. Only 2 games back out of that last play-in spot. So you really do not want to be in those play-in tournaments come playoff time. So let's see how that shakes out. I think the Lakers will seal it. They got the star power. Just sees how this is going to progress. The Warriors are in such a weird spot. They're 31 and 30. They got injuries across the board with Steph, Jimmy Butler, Kristaps Porzingis can't stay healthy again. And now they're relying on, 40-year-old Al Horford to be an offensive machine for them, and that's going to be really tough for them going down the stretch. So let's see how that happens. Portland looks to be making the final play-in spot at 29 and 33. And Memphis is, trails the pack behind them, not going to make the playoffs along with the Mavericks, the Spurs. Not our Spurs. The Grizzlies, the Mavericks, the Pelicans, the Jazz, and the Kings will find themselves in the lottery. The Kings are despicable, and the Kings are the reason why we need regulation in the NBA in regards to tanking, because you just cannot have teams like this. It is just a ridiculous setup that they have going on with the Kings. And there's a few other teams that have a ridiculous setup, and that's mainly out of the Eastern Conference. So we'll talk about that next. So number 1 out of the East is obviously the Pistons at 45 and 15. They have a comfortable lead on the Celtics over 4.5 games up. And then the Knicks trail just the Celtics by a game and a half behind them. Cavaliers close behind them. And then a little drop off to the Raptors, the 76ers. And then in the play-in tournament, we got the Magic, the Heat, the Hornets, and the Hawks. Hornets have definitely been playing way better than I did see them playing earlier in the season. They have really stepped up, especially with Colin Knippel. So could see him winning MVP. I mean, rookie of the year this year. So let's see how that plays out. I mean, the biggest surprise, obviously, out of the Eastern Conference would be my biggest two teams would be the Bucks and the Pacers. Pacers were definitely going to have an off year this year after making the NBA Finals last year. But oh my gosh, I could not imagine it was going to be this this far from grace. And it might prove how invaluable Tyrese Halliburton is to a franchise. Going 15-46 is just abysmal at this point of making the NBA Finals last year to go back to this far. They're tied with the Nets for the last place and really fighting for that first overall pick. Luckily, they're probably going to have a really good selection of an overall pick. AJ Obasanya, Peterson, one of the Boozer boys. They got really good draft picks coming up in the top 10 this year. So the poor will get richer, and we'll see how this works. Or we could have a thing with the Mavericks situation. It didn't work out for this year, but they got Cooper Flag, Kyrie Irving. They will come back with a vengeance next year. I'm not worried about the Mavericks. Other teams I'm really surprised about this season. The Bucks are just a really, overall, a badly constructed team. I was just really thinking that them getting rid of Drew Holiday when they did and trying to get Dame to, booster their status was ultimately the start of their downfall. Drew Holiday went on to Boston, won a championship right away, and they have been in this, really bad, kind of mixer tumble of, who is our starting point guard, out with the old guard, in with the new guard, keeping Bobby Portis, but getting rid of Chris Middleton. I just see a lot of nonsensical roster moves happening from the Bucks. And if I was Giannis, I would be wanting out there. It's at a point where I do not see this GM being, a positive for Giannis. So I believe it's time for him to cut their ties, go join a better franchise. Because the Bucks are just not cutting it. They're not building around him. They have not done anything this season that shows that they will build around him in the future. So I would be cutting my losses with the Bucks and moving on. Maybe out to San Francisco and join the Warriors. We'll see. All right. Well, the last thing I did want to talk about is that I believe that Colin Knippel is going to win Rookie of the Year. Colin Knippel has just been unbelievable. He is, and I see him in the rookie ladder of moving ahead of, Cooper Flag of being Rookie of the Year. Do I think that Cooper Flag will have a better career? Yes. Did Colin Knippel have a better season? Yes. Them two obviously are the number 1 and 2 for Rookie of the Year, with VJ Edgecombe of the 76ers falling much behind. But it's going to come down to a few things. Number 1, Colin Knippel has hit the rookie 3-point record. This league and these kids have learned through Steph Curry's trading that that they want to be 3-pointers just like Steph Curry. And Colin Knippel has just been proven that with over 20 games left before the end of the season, he breaks that record and is going to torch that record by the end of the season. Other things, the Hornets' success has been due to Colin Knippel with LaMelo Ball, obviously. But after going 31-31 at this point of their stage of the career, they were awful last year. To even get to this point was a testament to how good Colin Knippel has been, as well as their coaching. Cooper Flag has been on a really abysmal Mavericks team that, might also not have a great GM over there. So it's going to be really tough for him to win. The Mavericks, they only had 39 victories last year, still got it, and then they're having a really bad season this year. But here's a good stat. Of the last 25 Rookies of the Year, only 3 players played on teams that have won fewer games than the season before. 16 of the 25 Rookie of the Years have helped their team to win at least 30. The Mavericks are on pace to 28-54. That is not due to Cooper Flag. That is a really bad roster construction that they have. And I hope that they build around Cooper Flag. I think it's time to move on from Kyrie Irving. I think it's an absolute time to move on from Klay Thompson and rebuild that roster around Cooper Flag. I'd like to see Klay Thompson go join a contender, and because he's only got a couple more years left. So let's see how that plays out. This has been a really fun year. Colin Knippel and Rookie of the Year, I believe, is a lock at this point, unless, Cooper Flag goes crazy for the end of the season, but I don't see that happening with a team that's not in the playoffs. the what's it called? The Hornets will be in a play-in tournament game. So that's really exciting to see one of our top draft picks play in those tournament games. Other players that I'm looking out is VJ Edgecombe, obviously over on the 76ers. They will also most likely be making a play-in game. Really, or not a play-in game, or in the playoffs. So VJ Edgecombe, really good player. Just such great players with Con Knipple and Cooper Flat. Well, that's all I have here from today for Spurs Latest. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow for a game recap of the Pistons versus Spurs. Thanks so much.